as I will say frequently, you have to look where things are going. I think it's reasonable to say that, at some point this stuff is going to be very profitable, just as like, Google or Facebook or whatever it might be. That is a reasonable position to take. What's not reasonable to me is that you ought to be given money just because you used to exist. Like, this goes to some of these like the Australian law or the Canadian law about that Google and Facebook have to pay news publishers. And it's like, why? Right? There's this sort of like, just because you were there, you deserve to be propped up. This is the propping up of incumbents by government. It's the sort of stuff that I thought we should not be very happy about. If you want to make money, how about you have a business model that makes money? Or if you want to prop up a company, then levy a tax and do it, right? Like the UK with the BBC, right? Now, you can have a philosophical debate about should there be a television tax or whatever to sort of fund news,
just
but
as
at least
a policy
it's honest.
Consideration.
Yeah. Right. At least it's honest, right? These Canadian or Australian laws where we're going to make up an economic case that these companies are only valuable because of our news journalistic organizations, and therefore they have to pay them, which defies all economic logic and is shown by the fact that they have to force them to serve the country, because Facebook in particular is the most absurd one. Like Google, you can make the case, like if Google didn't have any local Australian news, like it's a less valuable service. Facebook, the news services themselves go to Facebook and put their links on there because they want people to click through. Like Facebook can cut them all off with zero harm to their business. Fine. So the part of this tweet that actually bugs me the most is not the sort of toothpaste out of the tube aspect. It's making up crap about these companies and their economic value. Their economic value doesn't exist. Now, like I said, there's lots of stuff in society that does not have economic value that we think is important, and therefore we collectively, via taxes, decide to fund. If you want to do that, fine. We can debate about this, but don't make up economic facts.
Well, wait, they're presupposing, I guess Walter Isaacson, and not presupposing, he's just saying that they do have economic value to OpenAI because the training data is particularly valuable. And that's not entirely wrong. I mean, it may not be that they're essential to OpenAI.
It's tough, right? Right. This gets like the Google
that would be
thing,
his
right?
argument.
Like Google's economic value comes from all the sort of content of the internet. If the internet went away, Google would be worthless. It's like, yes, that's correct. But like any individual publication is not valuable, right? And there is sort of a collective sort of action problem, but the issue is the collective action is for all content on the internet where anyone can post, right? My content is important to Google. I can choose to go online and to post it. If you want to collectively organize against Google, are you going to include me? Are you going to include Medium authors? Are you going to include social media? Are you going to include all like forum commentators? All that stuff is super important, right? And so again, if you want to have, I think it is philosophically coherent to say that these aggregators benefit from the collective action of everyone. Therefore, the way you solve that is through collectively monetize, like again, it's taxes. It's government. Government is a collective action problem. That's why it exists. What really bugs me is this. What's implicit in this sort of point of view is that there's only some content that's valuable, and it just happens to be the organizations that pay a lot of money to Walter Isaacson, right? Like, or whoever it might be, or maybe not him specifically, but his cohort, right? Of like, journalists and authors in their 40s and 50s. They all strongly believe that their work is more valuable than mine. I can promise you that.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah. And for me, I just do a double take because at least Google and Facebook, in the case of those laws, number one, those countries are being more explicit in saying this has social value, so we'd like to redistribute some of the
Like there's an aspect
here.
of the what they're actually doing. I'm somewhat okay with. It's the lying that bothers me, right?
Yeah.
What you're doing is you're levying a
piles
tax.
of money there. There's piles of money with Google and Facebook. They are doing extremely well. No, I'm just saying.
What happened to being a pro-America podcast?
As a distinction from the current setup where OpenAI is valued at an estimated 53 times its 2023 sales. The Times is valued at 3 times its 2023 sales. A lot of the value in AI is speculative and market based, as opposed to just generating
that's a
piles
VC
and piles
valuation,
of money.
right? It's a bet on what it might be. It is an expected value bet. It includes the possibility of it going to zero, right? Like that's the
but the Times in its lawsuit is also is throwing these numbers around, like Microsoft is $90 billion.
I mean, the Times is misrepresenting tech is like we already addressed that earlier in this podcast.
Right. So. I just want to state for the record, none of these things are making any money yet. So the idea that the New York Times and all these other organizations are being completely screwed rings a little bit hollow to me.